Hello, my dear listeners, and welcome. Settle in, get cozy under your blankets, and let the gentle glow of your screen be our only light. Tonight, we travel back in time, far back, to a world lit only by fire and shadowed by superstition. Our story begins in the late 14th century, in a small, quiet village nestled at the edge of a vast, dark forest. Our hero is a young boy named Finn. He wasn't particularly tall or strong, but he had eyes as bright as a summer sky and a heart full of curiosity. His home was a humble cottage with a thatched roof, warmed by a single crackling hearth. Finn lived with his parents, a hard-working blacksmith and a kind herbalist. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun bled orange and purple across the horizon, Finn's mother came to him with a worried look. A fever had swept through the neighboring village, and the healer there had sent for her help. His father, meanwhile, had been called to the Lord's manor to mend a broken gate, a task that would keep him away until morning. Finn, his mother said, her hands gently holding his shoulders, "You will have to be the man of the house tonight. Keep the fire stoked, bar the door, and do not open it for anyone, no matter what you hear. Do you understand?" Finn nodded bravely, though a tiny flutter of unease danced in his stomach. He had never spent a night entirely alone. He watched from the doorway as his mother's silhouette disappeared down the winding path, the last rays of daylight clinging to her cloak. Left alone, the cottage seemed to grow larger and quieter. The familiar creaks and groans of the old wood sounded like whispers. The shadows cast by the firelight danced on the walls, twisting into strange and unfamiliar shapes. Finn busied himself, adding a log to the fire as his mother had instructed. The flames leaped up, casting a warm, reassuring glow that pushed the darkness back into the corners. He ate the simple supper of bread and cheese left for him, his ears tuned to every sound. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters like a persistent ghost trying to get in. An owl hooted from the deep woods, its call a mournful question mark in the night. Finn tried to tell himself these were just the normal sounds of the countryside, the same sounds he heard every night. But tonight, they felt different. They felt ... watchful. To distract himself, he decided to play with his favorite toy, a small wooden knight his father had carved for him. He set up a grand battlefield on the rough-hewn floor, the knight valiantly fending off imaginary goblins and sprites that lurked in the grain of the wood. But even in his game, the shadows seemed to be his opponent's allies. Suddenly, a loud asterisk thump asterisk came from the roof. Finn froze, his wooden knight clattering to the floor. His heart pounded against his ribs like a trapped bird. Was it just a branch falling from the old oak tree that loomed over their cottage? Or was it something else? He held his breath, listening. Silence. Only the crackle of the fire and the whistle of the wind. He tried to dismiss it, his mind racing. It was just the wind. But then came another sound, a soft, scratching sound, coming from the window. Asterisk, scratch, scratch, scrape. Asterisk. It was rhythmic, deliberate. It wasn't the sound of a tree branch. It was the sound of claws. Finn's breath caught in his throat. He remembered his mother's words. Do not open it for anyone, no matter what you hear. He crawled silently across the floor, away from the window, his eyes wide in the flickering firelight. He huddled behind his father's large, empty chair, peering over the top. The scratching stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the noise. The air felt heavy, thick with anticipation. Then, a new sound began, a soft, melodic humming. It was a tune he didn't recognize, sweet and eerie, seeming to come from just outside the door. It was a beautiful sound, but it made the hair on Finn's arms stand on end. Who would be humming outside their door in the middle of the night? The humming grew louder, closer, and then a gentle knock. Asterisk tap, tap, tap. Asterisk Finn? A voice called. It was a woman's voice, as sweet as honeyed milk. "Finn, dear child, your mother sent me. She forgot her satchel of herbs and asked me to fetch it for her. It's terribly cold out here. Please, let me in." Finn's heart leaped. Could it be true? His mother often had help from the other women in the village. But her warning echoed in his mind, a stern and unyielding command. Do not open it for anyone. He stayed silent, hidden behind the chair, his knuckles white as he gripped the wood. "Please, Finn?" The voice cooed again, its sweetness turning a little sharper. "The night is dark, and the woods are full of ... things. I'm afraid. Just open the door for a moment." He wanted to believe her. He wanted to be helpful. But a cold knot of fear in his stomach told him something was wrong. His mother had taken her satchel. He had watched her check it 3 times before she left. Finn stayed perfectly still, trying not to even breathe. Outside, the sweet voice dissolved into a frustrated hiss. Then came a different sound, a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the very foundations of the cottage. The gentle knocking changed to a powerful, angry pounding. Asterisk, boom, boom. Asterisk, the heavy wooden door shuddered in its frame. The bar his father had forged held fast, but Finn could see the wood around the latch splintering. Panic seized him. He looked around the small room, his eyes desperately searching for a hiding place, for a weapon, for anything. His gaze fell upon the hearth. Next to it was a small sack of salt, which his mother used for preserving food and for other things. She always said salt was a purifying element, that it kept unwelcome spirits at bay. It was just a superstition, a folktale ... With the pounding at the door growing more frantic and violent, Finn scrambled on his hands and knees to the hearth. He grabbed the small, coarse sack. The door groaned, a long crack appearing down its center. He didn't have much time. Remembering his mother's strange rituals, he ran to the door and began pouring a thin, unbroken line of salt across the threshold, just inside the cottage. He did the same at the base of the shuttered window. He had barely finished when, with a final deafening crash, the wooden bar splintered and the door flew open. A blast of cold, damp air rushed in, extinguishing the fire and plunging the room into near total darkness, leaving only the faint, dying embers. Framed in the doorway was a figure. It was tall and gaunt, wrapped in shadows, with eyes that glowed with a faint, pale light like foxfire. It wasn't a woman. It wasn't human. It took a step forward, its long clawed foot reaching for the threshold. But as its claw touched the line of salt, it recoiled with a piercing shriek, a sound of pure rage and pain that echoed through the night. A creature hissed, its glowing eyes fixed on the shimmering white line on the floor, as if it were a wall of fire. It couldn't cross. It paced back and forth outside the doorway, its shadowy form contorting in fury, its growls and snarls filling the air. Finn was pressed against the far wall, his body trembling uncontrollably, the empty salt sack clutched in his hand. He could see it now, the thing from the woods, the creature from the whispered tales the village elders told on long winter nights. It had tried to trick him with a sweet voice, to lure him into a false sense of security. The creature shrieked one last time, a promise of vengeance in the sound, and then it melted back into the darkness of the forest. Silence descended once more, absolute and profound. Finn didn't move. He stood frozen, listening to the frantic beat of his own heart, until the first, pale fingers of dawn began to creep over the horizon. When the sun finally rose, casting long, gentle shadows, Finn heard the familiar sound of footsteps on the path. This time, he knew the sound. It was his father, and then, not long after, his mother. They rushed in, finding the door broken and their son pale but safe. Finn never forgot that night. He grew up, becoming a man who was not just curious, but wise. He always kept the fire stoked, the door barred, and a small sack of salt by the hearth. And sometimes on a crisp autumn evening, when the wind howled and scratched at the shutters, he would tell his own children a story about the importance of listening to your parents and of the things that lurk in the dark, waiting for a door to be opened. And now, it's time for you to drift off to sleep. Let the lessons of Finn's story be a comforting guard. Remember to be safe, to listen to those who care for you, and know that even in the darkest of nights, the morning light will always return. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed our journey into the past, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more tales. Sleep well and have the sweetest of dreams. Hello, spooky story lovers, and welcome back to the channel. As the nights draw in and a chill creeps into the air, there's nothing quite like curling up with a good book. But this isn't just any story time. Tonight, we're diving into the shadows to uncover the best Halloween bedtime stories. These aren't your typical jump scare tales. These are stories filled with atmosphere, mystery, and just the right amount of spookiness to send a delightful shiver down your spine before you drift off to sleep. So grab your favorite warm drink, get cozy under the blankets, and let's turn the first page together. First up, a timeless classic that has haunted generations. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. This story is the grandfather of American ghost tales. It's not just about the terrifying headless horseman. It's about the atmosphere. Irving paints such a vivid picture of the quiet, superstitious town of Sleepy Hollow, where every shadow seems to hold a secret. You can almost hear the rustle of the autumn leaves and feel the crisp night air as the bumbling schoolmaster, Ichabod Crane, makes his fateful journey home. The build-up of suspense is masterful. You feel Ichabod's growing paranoia, his heart pounding with every snap of a twig. It's the perfect story to read aloud, letting the rhythm of the words carry you into a world where folklore feels frighteningly real. It has less about a sudden shock and more about a lingering sense of dread. It stays with you long after the final page. A true masterpiece for any Halloween night. Next on our list is a story that proves you don't need monsters to be utterly terrifying. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. No one does psychological horror quite like Poe. This story takes you directly inside the mind of a narrator who is trying to convince you of his sanity while describing a meticulously planned, horrific act. The genius of this tale is the sound, the thumping of the telltale heart that grows louder and louder, mirroring the narrator's own guilt and unraveling mind. As a bedtime story, it's chilling because the horror is entirely human. It plays on our deepest fears of what people are capable of, and the idea that our own conscience can become our greatest tormentor. Reading this before bed makes you listen a little more closely to the creaks and groans of your own house. It's short, powerful, and will leave you with a racing pulse and a profound sense of unease. A must-read for those who love a story that gets under their skin. Now, let's journey into a tale that blends the whimsical with the wicked. The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. This isn't just a story. It's a magical, moonlit adventure through the history of Halloween itself. A group of boys, dressed in their costumes, set out on a trick-or-treating quest to find their missing friend Picton. Their journey leads them to a mysterious character named Mountroud and the incredible Halloween tree, laden with glowing jack-o'-lanterns. From there, they are swept through time, from ancient Egypt to medieval Paris, learning the origins of the traditions we celebrate today. Bradbury's writing is pure poetry. It's nostalgic, enchanting, and deeply atmospheric. This book captures the very soul of Halloween, the excitement, the friendship, and the bittersweet beauty of autumn. It's the perfect bedtime story for someone who loves the magic of the season as much as the scares. It reminds us that behind every mask and tradition, there's a rich and fascinating history waiting to be discovered. For our next pick, we're stepping into the brilliantly clever world of Neil Gaiman with his short story, Click Clack the Rattlebag. What makes this story so uniquely terrifying is what it doesn't tell you. The entire narrative is a conversation between a young boy and an adult who has agreed to take him upstairs to bed. On the way, the boy asks for a story, but not just any story. He wants to tell one himself, about the click-clack the rattlebag. As the boy describes these creatures, who sound like they're made of spidery, dry things and drink you through a straw, a sense of dread builds with every step up the stairs. The genius lies in its ambiguity and the power of suggestion. Your own imagination is forced to fill in the horrifying details. The ending is so subtle, yet so chilling, it will make the hair on your arms stand up. It's a masterclass in suspense and a perfect, quick scare before you turn out the lights. Let's move on to a story that finds horror in the quiet, unassuming corners of the English countryside. The Monkey's Paw by W. Jacobs. This is the ultimate cautionary tale about being careful what you wish for. A family comes into possession of a mummified monkey's paw that is said to grant 3 wishes, but at a terrible cost. The story masterfully builds a sense of impending doom. The first wish seems innocent enough, but its fulfillment comes through tragedy. The tension escalates as they debate using the second wish to undo the first, leading to one of the most suspenseful and terrifying scenes in classic horror literature. It's the knock on the door in the dead of night that will haunt you. The Monkey's Paw plays on our universal fear of fate and the unintended consequences of our actions. It's a slow burn horror that relies on psychological dread rather than gore, making it an incredibly effective and unsettling bedtime story. Now for something a little more modern and perfect for a younger audience, or the young at heart. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Yes, another Gaiman, because he is just that good at crafting deliciously dark fairy tales. Coraline Jones is bored and neglected as she discovers a secret door in her new house. Behind it lies a seemingly perfect version of her life, with an other mother and other father who have buttons for eyes. At first, it's a dream come true, but she soon discovers this idyllic world hides a sinister, soul-stealing secret. Coraline is a brilliant modern fairy tale that taps into childhood fears of being unloved or replaced. The other mother is one of the most terrifying villains in children's literature, a chilling blend of affection and possessive monstrosity. It's a story about courage, resourcefulness, and appreciating what you have. It's spooky and suspenseful, but ultimately empowering, making it a fantastic Halloween read that will give you chills, but won't leave you with nightmares. Finally, we have to include a story that defines the modern campfire tale. The Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series, collected by Alvin Schwartz, with those unforgettable illustrations by Stephen Gamble. These books are a treasure trove of folklore, urban legends, and ghost stories, all told in a short, punchy, and incredibly creepy style. From The Big Toe to Harold the Scarecrow, each story is a bite-sized piece of terror. What makes these perfect for Halloween bedtime reading is their variety and their direct storytelling tone. They feel like tales that have been passed down through generations, whispered in the dark. And let's be honest, Stephen Gamble's eerie, surreal, and nightmarish illustrations are half the experience. They sear themselves into your memory. Flipping through these pages is a rite of passage for any horror fan. You can read 1 or 2 before bed for a quick, effective dose of spooky fun that perfectly captures the spirit of Halloween. And that's our list of the best Halloween bedtime stories. From psychological thrillers to magical adventures, there's something here for every kind of spooky story fan. These tales prove that the best scares aren't always the loudest ones. Sometimes, they're the quiet whispers that echo in your mind long after you've closed the book. What are your favorite spooky stories to read during the Halloween season? Let me know down in the comments. I'm always looking for new recommendations. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you enjoyed this journey into the literary shadows, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content like this. Stay cozy, stay spooky, and have a very happy Halloween. Good night. Hello, spooky story lovers, and welcome back to the channel. With the nights drawing in and a chill in the air, what better way to get into the Halloween spirit than with a good old-fashioned spooky story? But we're not talking about the kind that will give you nightmares for a week. No, we're talking about the perfect Halloween bedtime stories. Just the right amount of thrill to make you pull the covers up a little tighter, but sweet enough to ensure you drift off into pleasant pumpkin spice dreams. Tonight, I'm going to share some of my absolute favorite tailies that are perfect for kids and the young at heart. So, grab your favorite warm drink, get comfy, and let's dive into the world of friendly ghosts, mischievous pumpkins, and magical autumn nights. First up, we have a classic that many of you might know, The Little Ghost Who Was Afraid of the Dark. Now, you might be thinking, a ghost who's scared of the dark? That's the whole point. This story follows a little spirit named Boo, who lives in a creaky old attic. Unlike his ghostly family, who loves to float through the shadowy halls at night, Boo prefers the daytime, when sunbeams dance through the dusty windows. But with the annual Halloween ghostly gala approaching, which only happens at the stroke of midnight, Boo has to face his biggest fear. This story is wonderful because it's not really about being scary. It's about bravery and how sometimes the things we're afraid of aren't so bad after all, especially when we have friends to help us through it. Boo meets a kind little firefly named Flicker, who shows him that the dark isn't empty, but filled with its own special kind of light. It's a heartwarming tale about friendship and finding courage in the most unexpected places. It's the perfect gentle start to our spooky story night. Next on our list is a story with a bit more mischief and a lot more magic. The Pumpkin Patch Prankster. This story is all about a pumpkin named Jack, who, unlike the other pumpkins, doesn't want to be carved into a scary face. He wants to be a comedian. Every year, as Halloween approaches, Jack spends his days telling jokes to the other pumpkins in the patch, much to the farmer's confusion. He hears muffled giggles coming from his fields. On the night before Halloween, a young girl named Lily comes to the patch, looking for the perfect pumpkin. She's not looking for the biggest or the roundest one. She's looking for a pumpkin with personality. When she finds Jack, she can't help but laugh at the funny, lopsided grin he seems to have naturally. She takes him home, but instead of carving him, she paints a silly mustache and glasses on him. Jack becomes the star of her front porch, making all the trick-or-treaters laugh. It is a fantastic story that teaches us that it is okay to be different and to embrace what makes you unique. Not every pumpkin has to be a spooky jack-o'-lantern. Some are just born to make people smile. All right, let's turn the spookometer up just a tiny notch with our third story, The Witch's Cat and the Missing Spell. In a crooked cottage on the edge of a misty forest lives a witch named Willow and her black cat, Jasper. Willow is known for her bubbly, cheerful potions, not her scary spells. She makes potions that make flowers sing and cookies that taste like sunshine. But one day, she realizes the recipe for her famous Giggle Brew, a potion she plans to share at the town's Halloween party, has gone missing. The whole town is counting on her brew to make the party a roaring success. Willow is in a panic, but Jasper, her clever cat, is on the case. The story follows Jasper as he sniffs his way through the enchanted forest, meeting quirky characters like a grumpy gnome who's lost his favorite mushroom, and a group of bats who are practicing their synchronized flying. It is a delightful little mystery where Jasper has to piece together clues to find the missing spell page, which, it turns out, was accidentally used as a bookmark by a forgetful owl. This story is filled with charm, a sense of adventure, and the gentle reminder that sometimes the smallest heroes can solve the biggest problems. Now, for those who enjoy a story that's a little more classic, let's talk about The Legend of the Sleepy Hollow Inn. Don't worry, this isn't Washington Irving's terrifying tale. This is a much cozier version. In a quiet little village, There's an old inn famous for its incredibly comfortable beds. So comfortable, in fact, that guests say they have the most wonderful dreams there. Legend has it that the inn is watched over by a friendly spirit, a former innkeeper from long ago named Bartholomew. He's not a headless horseman. He's a headless host, but only because he misplaced his hat one windy autumn evening and is forever patting his head looking for it. Bartholomew's only goal is to make sure every guest has a restful night. The story follows a family who, caught in an autumn storm, has to stay at the inn. The children are a little nervous about the old building and its creaky floors, but throughout the night they experience little comforts. An extra blanket appearing at the foot of their bed, the fireplace roaring back to life on its own, and the scent of cinnamon and apples filling the air. They wake up feeling more refreshed than ever before. It's a sweet, comforting ghost story that reframes the idea of a haunting into something warm and protective. It teaches kids that not all spirits are spooky. Some are just looking out for you. Finally, let's close out our Halloween bedtime story session with a tale about community and celebration. The Great Candy Corn Caper. In the town of Halloween Town Original I Know, the most important event of the year is the lighting of the Great Candy Corn, a giant magical candy corn statue in the town square that ensures everyone gets their favorite treats on Halloween night. But one year, the Great Candy Corn stripes mysteriously lose their color. The orange, yellow, and white fade to a dull gray, and everyone panics. Will Halloween be canceled? A group of brave monster kids, a young vampire, a little werewolf, and a friendly mummy decide they have to save Halloween. They embark on a quest to find the 3 ingredients needed to restore the colors. A sunbeam from the sunniest sunflower, the laugh of a joyful jack-o'-lantern, and the white of a friendly ghost's sheet. Their adventure has them working together, using their unique abilities to help each other overcome silly obstacles. In the end, they discover that the magic isn't just in the ingredients, but in their teamwork and friendship. When they restore the colors, the Great Candy Corn shines brighter than ever before. It's a wonderful story about cooperation and the true spirit of Halloween, which is all about coming together and sharing joy. And there you have it, 5 perfectly spooky, sweet, and silly bedtime stories to get you and your little ones ready for Halloween. From brave little ghosts to problem-solving cats, these tales are all about friendship, courage, and the gentle magic of the season. They prove that Halloween stories don't have to be scary to be fun. I hope you enjoyed these little story summaries, and that they inspire you to do some Halloween reading of your own. What are some of your favorite not-so-scary Halloween stories? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to check them out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future cozy content. Until next time, have a magical night and sweet dreams. Bye. Snuggle up deep under your covers. Get comfy and cozy, because tonight we're going on a special journey into the heart of Halloween. But don't you worry, these aren't the kind of stories that will keep you up at night. These are tales of friendly ghosts, silly monsters, and magical pumpkins, perfect for drifting off to dreamland. So, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let our first story begin. Our first story is called The Ghost Who Was Afraid of the Dark. In a tall, creaky house on a hill lived a little ghost named Casper. Now, Casper wasn't like the other ghosts. While they loved to float through dark hallways and say, "Boo," to the mice, Casper preferred the sunshine. He loved the way the morning light made rainbows on the dusty floors and warmed the old wooden banisters. The problem was, being a ghost, he was supposed to love the dark. The other ghosts would often tease him. "What kind of ghost is scared of the nighttime?" they'd whisper. This made Casper very sad. He would hide in the attic during the day, watching the sunbeams dance, dreading the moment the moon would rise. One Halloween night, The biggest and spookiest night of the year, all the other ghosts were getting ready for the grand ghost gathering in the haunted forest. Casper knew he couldn't go. The forest was darker than the darkest closet, and the thought of it made his ghostly form shiver. As he watched them float away from the window, a tiny teardrop, looking like a little pearl, rolled down his cheek. Suddenly, he heard a small voice. "Are you all right?" it squeaked. Casper looked down and saw a little firefly with a very bright light. "I'm lost," said the firefly. "My name is Sparkle, and I can't find my way back to my family in the meadow. It's too dark for me to see the path." Casper looked at the scared little firefly and felt a pang of sympathy. He knew exactly what it felt like to be afraid of the dark. "I can help you," Casper said, his voice barely a whisper. "I know this house better than anyone." Gathering all his courage, Casper floated down from the attic, with Sparkle glowing brightly beside him. "If we go through the kitchen, there's a back door that leads right to the edge of the meadow," Casper explained. As they drifted through the dark rooms, Sparkle's light cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. But Casper wasn't scared. With his new friend by his side, the darkness didn't seem so frightening anymore. It was just quiet. They finally reached the back door and pushed it open. The meadow was just ahead, filled with hundreds of blinking, twinkling fireflies. "My family," Sparkle chirped with joy. "Thank you, Casper. You were so brave." Casper smiled, a real happy smile. He had faced the dark and helped a friend. As he floated back into the house, he realized that a little bit of light and a good friend can make even the darkest night feel bright. And from that day on, Casper wasn't quite so afraid of the dark anymore. Now let's drift over to a cozy little pumpkin patch for our next story, The Pumpkin Who Couldn't Glow. On a farm nestled in a valley lived a small pumpkin named Pip. Pip was a perfectly round, perfectly orange pumpkin, but he had a secret. While all the other pumpkins in the patch practiced their spooky faces and tried to glow with an inner Halloween light, Pip couldn't. He tried scrunching up his pumpkin face. He tried thinking happy pumpkin thoughts, but not even a flicker of light would appear. "You'll never be a proper jack-o'-lantern," a large, grumpy pumpkin named Gordon grumbled next to him. "You're just a plain old squash." Pip felt his stem droop. He wanted more than anything to shine on a porch on Halloween night, to be part of the magic. The night before Halloween, a little girl named Lily came to the patch with her father. She walked past the big, proud pumpkins and the perfectly shaped ones. Her eyes landed on little Pip. "This one," she said softly. "He looks kind." Lily took Pip home and set him on her kitchen table. She didn't carve a scary face into him. Instead, she got out her paints. She painted a big, happy smile on his face, two bright, curious eyes, and even a little swirl on his stem. She then glued shiny, colorful leaves all around him like a festive collar. Pip had never felt so special. He wasn't scary, but he was beautiful. On Halloween night, Lily didn't put a candle inside him. Instead, she placed him on her front step, right next to a string of twinkling fairy lights. The lights reflected off his shiny paint and the colorful leaves, making him sparkle and shimmer in the twilight. He was glowing, not from the inside, but from the love and creativity a little girl had shared with him. All the trick-or-treaters who came to the door said, "Wow, look at that happy pumpkin. He's the best one on the whole street." And Pip, sitting proudly on the step, knew that there's more than one way to shine. For our final story tonight, let's fly through the moonlit sky to meet the little witch's first spell. In a crooked cottage with a mossy roof lived a young witch named Willow. Willow was about to start witch school, and she was both excited and very, very nervous. Her mother had given her a brand new spell book, its pages filled with mysterious words and complicated wand movements. The first spell she was supposed to learn was a simple one, the bubble charm, a spell to create floating, shimmering bubbles. It sounded easy enough. Willow stood in her room, pointed her brand new willowwood wand and said the magic words, "Bola floter." But instead of bubbles, a shower of socks rained down from the ceiling. Big woolly socks, small stripy socks, even a few mismatched socks. Her cat, Midnight, looked up, utterly confused. Willow tried again, focusing very hard. "Bola floter." This time, a flock of tiny, bright yellow canaries fluttered out of her wand, chirping happily as they flew around her head before vanishing. Willow sighed. She tried turning the page. She tried wiggling her wand differently. She even tried saying the words in a squeaky voice. Each time, something different happened. Once, her bedsheets neatly folded themselves. Another time, all the books on her shelf arranged themselves by color. It was magical, yes, but it wasn't bubbles. Feeling frustrated, she sat on her bed. "I'm a terrible witch," she mumbled to Midnight. "I can't even do the first spell right." Just then, her mother came in. "Having some trouble, sweetie?" she asked, smiling as she dodged a floating sock. Willow explained everything. Her mother listened patiently, then said, "Willow, you're not getting it wrong. The spell book is just a guide. Magic comes from in here," she said, tapping Willow's heart. "It's about what you feel. What do you think of when you think of bubbles?" Willow closed her eyes. She thought about a warm summer day, blowing soapy bubbles in the garden, watching them float up into the blue sky, shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow. She thought of how light and happy and carefree they were. A smile spread across her face. Without even thinking about the words, she gently waved her wand. And this time, a single perfect bubble emerged from the tip. It grew bigger and bigger, reflecting her happy face in its surface. Soon, another appeared, and then another, until her room was filled with dozens of floating, shimmering, rainbow-colored bubbles. She had done it. She learned that the most important ingredient for any spell wasn't just the right words or the right wand movement, but a little bit of heart. And with that, our Halloween tales for tonight come to a close. The friendly ghost, the happy pumpkin, and the little witch are all snuggled in and dreaming, just like you. The world of stories is a magical place, always here for you when you're ready to explore. I hope these tales have filled your head with happy thoughts and gentle dreams. Thank you for listening and sharing this cozy time with me. If you enjoyed our stories, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more bedtime adventures. Now drift away, little one. Sweet dreams and happy Halloween.